Hey guys, welcome to the Gilda Show. I have a very special guest for you guys today. Her name is Heather Prete, and she is amazing. She's a mindfulness coach at the Den Meditation Center, and she has her own clients. She works with people from all ranges, with anxiety and depression to serious trauma patients and cancer patients, and she helps people with healing past traumas and being able to live happier lives today. And one of the ways she does that is by using self-compassion. And the reason I chose to interview her is because just after a few sessions of going to her classes, it really impacted my life significantly. I've done so much work on myself the last 10, 15 years, and I'd actually never even heard of self-compassion. And it's really the practice of having compassion for ourselves and our inner child. And she's wonderful at this. And she's been trained professionally for more than 20 years in the Tibetan practices. And also she's certified by UCLA. And she's here today answering questions that I have from my past traumas, like my high school crush not asking me to prom and instead taking my best friend. And, you know, I hope that what we talked about is relatable to you. So I hope you enjoy this episode. I hope that you gain something from it. And I'm going to put her information on the link below. It's heatherpretemindfulness.com. And I hope you enjoy the episode. Thanks. So, you teach meditation full time?
Mm-hmm.
That's what you do for a living?
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Yes, it is amazing, and it's super unusual, and rare, and I feel very, very blessed about that. I can't even tell you. Yeah.
You know, I think it's interesting because there's a workshop here at the Den tonight that's like, quit your day job and do what you love at 7 p.m. It's like $35. And I was like, oh, it's like these two people like quit their lives and they went to Bali and they're going to teach us how to do the same. And like most people don't quit their day jobs to do what they think is their life's calling. And you were an actress, you said, right? Maybe. Are you still an actress?
No, I actually let go. I mean, I had been a professional actor my whole life. I was a stage actor, so I'm originally from Chicago, and Chicago has a very intense theater community, and so I was a part of that. And I also made my living from acting, which is, I feel like I've gotten very blessed twice, because many people don't get to do that. When I moved here, though, everything changed, right? So it was like the acting was much less. My agents, who had been open for I think that they had the agency for 50 years, finally retired. It was just like things were melting in that area as I started finding out about the secular mindfulness and UCLA and the courses through UCLA, and how there was a new movement basically in my spiritual practice. So when I would do occasional drop-in courses in Buddhism, we didn't get paid. For one, you don't get paid for that. It's a donation. And they were, maybe once a week. So now that it's become secularized, now that we have the evidence and we can see what happens to people's brains, we can bring this everywhere. So the Den is really my home, but I actually only teach 3 courses a week at the Den. So I only teach 3 45-minute courses here, and then the rest is my private practice. Mm-hmm. And I use the Den as my office too to see people. And I'm also very lucky, since I've been doing it for 20 years and studying Buddhist psychology, that I'm able to do counseling mm-hmm. With clients that I see regularly. And I've been able to take all of this that really was of interest to me and made sense to me, and pass it on and help people. And to me, that's a huge gift. So.
I mean, it's a huge gift it's so wonderful. I think that our purpose is to help one another, right? To help. That's all, help people.
Yeah.
And you are using your specific skills to help people in their paths. And I think that is the ultimate alignment.
Yeah. I mean, I fully agree with you. I think that most human beings would agree with you if they could clear out like the obscurations to their wisdom. And so we get a lot of obscurations in our culture. And it's so funny that you're saying this class about going to Bali and quit your day job and such and such and such. What's the first thing that arises when someone says quit your day job?
Fear.
There you go.
No. Where will I get money? What will I do?
That's right.
How will I pay the bills?
That's right.
I have a family.
That's right. And so I can't. And now I'm not saying quit your day job. Don't get me wrong. I'm a pretty practical person. But what we want to work with is in mindfulness and self-compassion, which I know that's something you want to bring up, is that we want to work with the fear that keeps us from touching into what our life's purpose is. Now, listen, you might transform the fear through self-compassion, and your wisdom might say, I don't want to quit my day job. That's silly. I want to maybe go and do art on the weekends. We can't hear that voice, until we ask the question, work with what arises around that question. I mean, we're in fear then, and nobody wants to feel like they're making choices in their life out of fear. When we come to the end of our lives and we say, did I live my life the way that I wanted to live my life? Can I look back with a feeling of contentment and well-being? Can I let go easily right now? If we lived out of fear, I suggest the answer might be, no, I don't feel like I lived my life fully, right? So we want to work with things that say, I can't. It doesn't mean you will quit your day job. That's not the point. The point is, where are we making our choices from? Who is making our choices for you, or for us? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. You guys, I can't explain the feeling. Like, I hope this comes across in the video, but being in your presence, I got so emotional as you were saying that, because I feel that you're a channel. I feel that you're like in your purest state, and these are like messages coming through you, and it's like it's almost like your whole demeanor changes, and you I don't know, I have had moments like that where I've tapped into that for other people, and then when I'm witnessing it and the way it goes so deep into my soul. And so that will bring me to the self-compassion stuff.
Yeah.
Is that like I had come to your class last week, and you asked the class, she asked like, well, does anyone have something they want to talk about or work on? And I said perfectionism, because I don't want to start something if I don't think it's going to be perfect. And this is that.
Yeah.
This was my dream. This is all I want to do. This is my dream. This is my actual dream. This is all I want to do. It's like and then I kept thinking, no, and I bought this equipment. I've had this for like a year now. I've never used it. You're my first person I'm actually interviewing real time with microphones, with an appointment. Like, this is nuts. And I said perfectionism, and you said you taught us, the class and me, about self-compassion, which I've read a million self-help books. I know Wayne Dyer and Louise Hay and self-love and tell yourself you're beautiful and you love yourself and you can do it and all this stuff. But the idea of self-compassion I'd never learned that in all my years. And then you said, go listen to this TED Talk with Kristen Neff, and go listen to, and I looked up like, there's a very famous woman you told me has a meditation.
Tara Brach?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. I listened to that. Like, I slept to that all weekend. I mean, I've been like I feel so much better. Yeah. And as I was like, well, tell us a little bit, like I was using those, it's like having compassion for yourself. And I was using those skills just as I was getting, like, I didn't want to go to the beach on 4th of July. I didn't want to wear a swimsuit, because I'm like, oh, I've gained 5 pounds. I'm not even going to wear a swimsuit.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, you can do it. It's okay. If you want to wear, if you're going to lose 5 pounds, it's only going to take a month to burn off. Like, don't worry about it. Just put on the swimsuit. There's plenty of people at the beach. Like, it's okay. Like, I love you. And I was just like coaching myself through like all of these, and really difficult things happened this weekend. And I was just saying to like the little Gilda, like, I love you and it's okay. And you can do this. And that's what brought me here today, to do this in this imperfect form.
Yeah.
And so tell us what self-compassion is and how we can use it.
Yeah, thank you. So this is really beautiful. You hit on a couple things. So one, you were referring to the inner critic, which says you gain 5 pounds. And if we can logically for a moment break things down and then realize that logic isn't enough to change our wiring, but let's logically break things down, right? Let's say we have 5 pounds as a concept in our mind. First of all, who knows what 5 pounds even looks like? Okay,
What do you mean? 5 pounds looks like little
Really?
muffin top.
Does it?
A little muffin top,
Does
a little
it?
pooch.
To you.
I see it in the photos.
Yeah, you see it in the pictures. Okay.
A year ago, I didn't have this pooch.
Okay.
So 5 pounds looks like a
Looks
little
like
pooch.
a pooch. Okay. All right. Fair enough. So then so it's no longer 5 pounds. It's the pooch that we're criticizing.
Yes.
Okay.
Pooch.
Now we're breaking this down a little bit, right?
Cellulite on the thighs.
Yeah. So listen, I'm going to tell you guys how I managed to love my pooch. Okay. And I've recently lost weight because I have a chronic condition. I have a chronic pain condition, and one of my medications
I don't think I
makes
know
food unappealing.
Oh,
So we can.
Sounds awesome. Sorry.
My point being, my weight has fluctuated much throughout my life, right? So, how do we end up feeling okay when we have a pooch? So the first thing we need to really contemplate, okay, is how sad it is that we can't be in public and enjoy nature and enjoy our friends because we're concerned that there's a small shape on part of our body that actually is a sign of health, first of all. It's good for women to have that. So we're starting to see the prison that the inner critic puts us in.
It's because I feel like if I run like 2 miles a day, it's true because I did used to do this. If I run 2 miles a day and don't eat carbs, I won't have the pooch.
Yeah.
So every time I see the pooch, it's like, oh, I'm not running. I'm not
There you go. That's your inner critic.
doing the diet.
That's
I'm eating
right.
carbs.
So now we're starting to see.
This is a representation of all of the stuff I'm not doing good enough.
There you go. So neurons that fire together wire together. I mean, this is how we all think. It's not unusual to you. That's why we're laughing, because this is like what our brain does. That's why it's funny. It's like, what is going on? Human beings it's a little nutty. But luckily, we have this ability to care for our systems as well, right? So the first thing we want to do is acknowledge that neurons that fire together, wire together. And we're acknowledging now a softness and a roundness in the belly is now wired with a barrage, a waterfall effect, we call it, of thoughts that are created to make us feel bad about ourselves. And then those thoughts that make us feel bad about ourselves send a signal that we should withdraw from the clan. There's something inherently wrong with us, and God forbid anybody see it or know about it. This is an ancient part of the brain. This is a reptilian part of the brain. And so much of this is about survival. Now, we also have this beautiful thing called the compassion mind and mindfulness. Now, look, you can't see it, but we can see the effects it's having on the brain. So we can all just get on board to say that this is actually a part of who we are. We can see the differences of people who actually access these aspects in their brain wiring and the different areas of the brain that are activated at different times. And when we put non-meditators and meditators in MRIs, we see differences. So let's just get on board that mindfulness is a thing, right? We can do that. Now, what we want to start doing is say, all right, every time I look at this, I'm being verbally abused. Now, if you saw a little girl, let's say, and an adult was saying these horrible things to her because she had a little pooch, okay? How would you feel seeing that? Well, how would you feel seeing that?
Sad.
You would
upset.
Yeah, you would see that as abuse, I'm sure. If someone spoke to a little kid the way you talk to yourself in your mind.
But little kids can't, they're innocent and they can't control anything. I can control these things.
Oh, now we're in a whole nother realm, sweetheart. So that's why that's why that little girl has to learn about shame from her body. She's going to learn from someone telling her to have shame and have control.
Because it is shameful.
So yeah, so it's telling, the thinking mind is telling you to feel shame, and you feel shame. And that's what we mean by it is shameful. It means that we're actually feeling it. Now, what do we do about the shame? So that's where the practice comes in. Okay, sweetheart. So I saw a pooch. I had a waterfall effect of thoughts. They were critical thoughts. Now I feel shame because the thinking mind is connected to our amygdala, the little almond-shaped brain. Almond-shaped aspect of the brain that's at the top of the spinal cord, and is activated. Shame is starting to arise. Anxiety, shame. Now what do we do with ourselves? The shame is something we want to run from usually. And so we starve ourselves, or we work out, or we don't go to the beach, and we hide. But actually, we have to heal the aspect of the self that has been beat up by buying into the inner critic. See, we're not one solid thing, and that's really the deepest part of the teachings. We're our thinking mind, we're our emotions, we're sensations, the physical body, perceptions. All of these different aspects work together. There's this beautiful system, but you have to know how they work, because the mother and the caretaker is the compassion mind. So we have all these aspects that are just running wild, and it's time for us to come in now and start to heal those things. And the compassion mind is also a fierce protector of the self. So when we have critical thinkings, we go, critical thought, we unhook and we come back. I care about you, you're safe, whatever it is. Let's just talk a little bit about how you bring compassion to the shame.
Yeah,
so you feel
please.
the shame rising? Do you feel that shame rising even thinking about it?
Yeah.
So let's all just sense, what does it feel like in the body? So what is shame? The first thing we want to do is we want to meet this energy of shame. Okay, so shame is it's just this aspect of the self that we want to care for. So how do you know you feel shame?
I feel nauseous.
So there's a feeling of nausea in the body. So what is nausea to you? Is it like flipping, movement, churning? Okay, so there's some movement. It's like a churning sensation.
And here.
Okay, what's up here?
It feels like the gag reflex.
Okay.
Like it feels like, like if I want to throw up.
Yeah, like it's hard to swallow. Okay, and then what are the thoughts connected with shame?
I'm worthless. I don't deserve, I don't deserve wearing a bikini and going to the beach because I haven't been doing the things I should have been doing. Or that's the one example. Or I don't deserve to do this podcast. I don't know, because I haven't been doing it for the last 10 years.
Yeah. So you see how that there's sort of your flavor of sort of the inner critic's flavor is saying you don't deserve, right? Or shame, and you didn't do enough to have happiness and well-being and do a podcast and go to the beach and enjoy yourself. So if we were working together over a long period of time, I would start us touching into that story. But for today, let's just go through the gentle practice. So we notice, first of all, how do we know we feel shame? So an emotion is a connection between thoughts and sensation in the body. So she's having the flipping of the stomach and the tightness in the throat, connected with some thoughts that say you don't deserve. Okay? So now we are going to label that shame. So shame has arisen. We don't say I feel shame, or I am shameful, or I am shame. Here's shame. Because what we're starting to do is develop a different kind of relationship where we're not enmeshed in the feeling. We're starting to be able to be this loving observer who cares, okay? Just like a loving parent. So the first thing we say is hello, shame, I know you're here. Can you even say that?
Say it to the shame. Okay. Hello, shame. I see that you're here.
Yeah. How are you feeling just knowing that it's here?
I guess it makes it less serious or less bad.
Less threatening.
Yeah.
we're taking
some power back.
Yeah, we're taking our seat, right? So we're taking our seat in mindfulness. As soon as you can observe shame and you can talk to shame in that way, you're starting to tap into mindfulness, which is this kind, non-judgmental awareness that sees all these things. That's why you're not your shame. You can actually observe it. So all of a sudden we're stepping back, we're saying, hello, my dear, I see you there. And you guys don't have to say dear yet, because it takes a while before you develop a loving relationship with things, but you know that I had chronic anxiety.
Yeah,
You know,
you
I was
talked about
hospitalized
that.
for anxiety for a week in high school because I just started disassociating. And they just said, oh, she's just in a lot of pain, which I was. I was in emotional pain. And I was untreated for 20 years, you know. So with this practice, I learned to care enough about my anxiety through self-compassion, to love that energy enough that it broke past the fear. And then neurons that fire together, wire together. So compassion and anxiety wired together to the point whenever I would feel a little energy of anxiety come up, a voice would come without me trying that just says, hello, my darling, I see you there. Because I spent time wiring those things. When we do that, oxytocin releases into our system and those difficult emotions start to calm. Our amygdala starts to calm. That's where the healing comes in.
I mean, I had your class, and I had been aware of the self-compassion, and I had sort of used it to sort of I get a lot of anxiety just leaving the house, just like, oh, do I have everything? And then like I'm late to everywhere, and I'll get stupid anxiety, but I do. And I want to go talk to people and do interviews on the street, but just getting out of the house can be so hard. And I was doing that, like, it's okay, and you're just going to go out for an hour and you can come back and you're not that far. And I was using that. And then
And you said a couple of things that I want to touch on. So one is when we start to develop that compassion voice, so you know how she was saying, she was having that voice, was saying, it's okay, you can come in. We want to be really aware that we're not using the thinking mind. We're not trying to fix something with what created the problem. Instead, it's more of the energy of care. Right? So we do use phrases, and those phrases are meant to tap into the energy of compassion. So if you use a phrase over and over again in your meditation, so first you would say, I see you there. And then you say, I know that you suffer, and that's why I'm here for you. So in the next aspect of compassion is acknowledging this is a moment of suffering, which we don't do for ourselves enough. It is suffering when we beat ourselves up over our bodies. It's suffering when we say we can't. We pass that up. And the first thing we need to do is start to acknowledge that with love. So I know you suffer, and that is why I'm here for you, to the feeling of shame. Okay? And then we can start adding phrases that are infused with the heart. So just as you would talk to a small animal who was hurt or a child, you can start sending compassion phrases with a kind, gentle voice and a soothing tone, such as, you're safe, I'm here for you, or I love you just as you are, or this is your birthright to have your joy. There's nothing you can do that makes you undeserving of your joy. You understand what I'm saying to you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this is the aspect of the voice, and we have to find it. It takes some time. Okay. And then that's the part that's going to care for you, so that we're not pushed around by the inner critic, which is trying to protect us, but it does it as an abusive partner, you know. So your more true aspect is your compassion mind. More coming home. And we need to do this consistently, right? Every day, around a single energy.
So even when things aren't stressing us out,
you have to
you
bring
have to
that
have
energy.
those conversations with your
And
am I visualizing? Are we visualizing the like inner child version of me and talking to it?
Okay, so I'm going to just say for people who are listening, it's really up to you how you're going to do this, because the purpose of all our visualizations and the purpose of these phrases is to tap into a sense of caring and compassion that you have for yourself Okay. And it's the same sense that you would have for anyone else. So it's within you. It's just that you're turning it towards the self. All right. So in order to transform an energy, like I transform my anxiety, you want to meet it every day. So what I would do is I would sit and then I would recall something that waters the seed of anxiety in me, but not too big.
Like the pooch.
Yeah.
So
and
think
then
about the pooch.
Think about, yep.
And then say, I see you, shame.
When the shame arises. You know, I did this for my pooch. This is funny. So I did this, and now I love my pooch because those neurons that fire together, wire together. I used to be the kind of person where if like you're with your boyfriend or something and they touch your stomach, I'd be like, they think I was crazy. I'd be like, don't touch my stomach.
Yeah.
Right? Because I had so much body shame. And now because of all this wiring, I'm just like, hi, little friend. You know, I mean, I know it sounds hokey, but look past the surface of that and really think about how profound that is. From going from hate to love.
How do we know, how can we convince ourselves that it's okay to love ourselves even if we don't think we were enough?
We have to just do it. So we do it, it's going to feel uncomfortable. We do it, it feels awkward. We do it, it feels dry. And you do that for maybe for a whole month, it feels like you're not doing anything. That's okay. You're watering the seeds. It takes time to rewire. So when we feel like I don't deserve it, how about this? I don't deserve it, and I'm going to give it a try. Over time, with enough compassion, you start to realize that you deserve happiness. And then you go beyond that even, and you start to realize that the word deserve doesn't even make sense anymore because happiness is just here.
Well, so I grew up with kids at school not being accepting of me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was best friends with this girl. And she was beautiful and she had blue eyes and she was perfect. And I was friends with this guy who was new to our school, but he and I were friends, Justin Miller. And now he's like a fly fisherman. It's so funny. And, you know, I used to really have a crush on Justin. And I would tell this friend of mine about the crush, and she knew all about it. And then they became friends because of me. And then, of course, Justin took her to the prom. Aww. And they started dating, and I was devastated. Yeah, and so then painful. And I was just like, oh my God. So I stopped being friends with her, and I obviously stopped being friends with him. And that pattern has repeated itself throughout my life of not being accepted and not being included. Right. And so when I enter groups of friends or friendships, I'm always kind of feeling already why would they even want to be friends with me? Or, oh, I'm talking too much, or, oh, I'm annoying, or they don't want me here really, or should I go, or whatever, those things are going on. Mm-hmm. And it's hard for me. It's either I'm fine alone and I'm confident when I'm alone because I've always been independent. But when I get into that group environment, all these things get really triggered.
Sure. So that's right. Exactly. And that's exactly what it's like. It's exactly listen, that's exactly what it is. So when we have seeds, we have something we call, in the psychology, we call the subconscious, the store consciousness. And within that store consciousness is every seed that human beings can possibly experience. And the seeds that get watered more become stronger. Those seeds are more easily watered in the future. And every time they're watered, they become stronger and stronger, meaning that wiring in our brain is strengthened so that we can recall it easily in the future when a similar threat arises. So this is the brain's trying to keep us safe, right? It's saying, hey, this looks like prom. And remember how horrible we felt because it wasn't safe, right? Being friends with people wasn't safe because then you're going to get hurt. And the old stories play because within that seed are a myriad of things, from a sensation of emotion to thoughts to memories. Okay? So what we're starting to realize is that what's arising right now is dependent on what seeds are strong in us. It's not about what the reality is. It doesn't mean that people are thinking, I don't want you there. But that's what the seed remembers. That's that's the story that we've actually constructed, so that when something similar arises, we go into that construction and we withdraw. That is a way that we feel, quote unquote, safe according to the thinking mind. Now, if we go into our true self, when we go into the base of our reality, we can see that actually it's not the situation that's causing the issues. It's what seed's been watered. Okay, so how do we make those seeds weaker? Those seeds of difficulty. The way we make them weaker is by noticing them and adding compassion. When we start to do that, we weaken the seeds. One energy cares for the other. Just like when a child scrapes its knee, if the mother rocks the child stops crying even though the knee is scraped. It wasn't the scraped knee that was the difficulty, it was the fear. Okay, so when we can calm that child down, there's a soothing that happens. Oxytocin is released into their system, this beautiful chemical cascade that allows the amygdala, the fight, flight, or freeze. It does other things too, yes, but the fight, flight, or freeze is softened. Okay, we start to feel safe. We're going to marry that feeling of safety with these sensations, these stories, these energies that are within us. When we do that, that seed starts to weaken over time, and it takes time. This is not something that's instant. We don't sit once and expect our brain to change. It's just not the way it is. It's like you can't go to the gym and work out once and expect that you can become a weightlifter or a marathon runner. That's not how it works. It takes time, okay, to strengthen that muscle. Now, just starting to approach it that way is you already creating self-compassion. So even if we don't feel the transformation, we can know I'm already practicing compassion simply by being here, by not going into reactivity of running from my fears, okay? This is how we begin. Now, one thing you talked about was distraction. We were on a break, and she talked about distraction because I was doing a little bit of distraction for myself. I have a chronic pain and energy disorder. So I have a constant sort of neurological thing happening in my body. So I work all day and I take breaks every once in a while, and maybe I'll do something that distracts me. So we were talking about Diet Coke, right?
Yeah, I'm like upset.
It was her thing.
Diet Coke.
It's her thing of Diet Coke. And we were talking about the really wise spiritual, and by the way, something that's very much supported by neuroscience, the spiritual knowledge that it's not the Coca-Cola that we need to worry about so much. It's our relationship to it. Why? Because you said, do you mind if I just share this? That you said when you drink Coca-Cola, then sometimes you beat yourself up about the Coca-Cola, right?
Yeah, I drink the Coke and then I'm like, I know I shouldn't be doing this. It's bad for me. It's killing me. It's bad for my teeth.
That's what we call suffering.
Right. Because I know it's bad. Because I know it's
what we call
wrong.
Suffering is all of those mean things.
Or
that
eating
you're
carbs. Or sweets.
We can talk about that another time because
it's the same thing.
It's a whole,
right?
it is. It's how are we relating to this substance, right? So the pain, the suffering comes from the beating ourselves up while we drink the Coke. Thich Nhat Hanh says, if you're eating and you're thinking about your plans, you're eating your worry. And what he means is that's actually how that action's affecting our system. Okay? If we're drinking a Coca-Cola and we're in fear, we're feeding our fear. Those are the things that cause the suffering that we have as human beings. So now how can we work with this with a mindful distraction? Let's say you're just overwhelmed and you're like, I just need a Coca-Cola. You're a human being. This happens. This is how life is. We want a middle way. In Buddhism, we call it the middle way. We're neither contracting around things that are difficult, nor are we clinging to things that are positive. So when we think, oh, well, I went a whole week without drinking Coca-Cola, I'm a good person. We're actually creating suffering there because we're starting to identify ourselves as being good by an action. So what's going to happen? Eventually, you're going to drink the Coca-Cola. It's just the way it is, and that's okay. When we drink it, can we enjoy it? First thing we want to do is we want to say, okay, I'm not strong enough right now to deal with, let's take me as an example, the pain that's arising. Right now I do need a little distraction. I will meditate on it, okay? So when we drink that, can we just know this is temporary? This is a moment in which I'm taking some ease, and can we enjoy it? Sense the ease it creates. Then afterwards, if you say that's not the best thing for my body, then we add a little care to help the body support itself. So we can say, okay, but I'm also going to drink a green drink today. And I'm going to give myself compassion for the fact that I was suffering enough that I did something that maybe is not best for my body right now. We know that many diseases are caused from stress and difficult thinking. That's just a fact.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Absolutely.
just a fact. And so we want to care for ourselves enough so that these small things that happen in life, listen, our air isn't always as pure as we would like it to be either. And our food is grown in soil that doesn't have all the nutrients that it really needs right now, okay? So it's not that things have to be perfect. We don't need perfection to give ourselves care. And I will...
Wait. Say that again.
We don't need perfection to give ourselves care. We are not giving ourselves compassion despite being human. We're giving ourselves compassion because we are human.
Wow. Are you sure we don't have to be perfect?
Yeah, because I'm going to tell you another secret. That perfection, that idea, it's a concept made by the thinking mind. It's a prison.
And Iranian parents.
And Iranian
Make
parents.
us
And our society
be doctors
and our
and
culture.
lawyers to be, in order to... Because how do you change... I know you said it takes time, but it's like I spent my whole life being told, like, you have to be a doctor, and then when you're a doctor, and then it was like I reached those things. I didn't become a doctor. I'm a lawyer, and it's so funny because when my mom wanted me to be a doctor, and I was like, I can't. What? That doesn't. Okay. I became a lawyer, and then when I graduated and became a lawyer, passed the bar, she started calling me doctor to her friends. She would introduce me as like Dr. Gilda Gazor, and I was like, wow, Mom, like you really like don't get this idea that I'm not a doctor. Like that sucks. Like I'm a lawyer. It's pretty good. And then I went to Iran and I studied law there, and I saw that there it's a doctorate of law. And so they do call lawyers doctors.
There you go. So you actually...
It was me that was thinking I still wasn't good enough. And then now I say to my mom, I do this to make you proud. And she says, oh, I was proud of you the day that you were born. I'm like, what? No, you weren't. You told me I had to be a doctor.
What did your thinking mind tell you?
Now?
What did it say as far as I have to be a doctor because...
Then my parents will love me.
There you go, dear. So,
but that's like normal, right? Like,
it's totally normal. Listen, it's everything that we're talking about is normal. First of all, second of all, yes, it's normal, and we need some mindfulness here. Okay, because what we just said is my parents don't love me.
Well, it sure felt like I had to do a lot of things in order to meet that criteria.
Yeah, that's right. And it did feel like that. And so compassion for those feelings helps to transform them so we can get clarity. And the middle way is my parents love me now, and they'd be thrilled if I was a doctor, right? Now, when we work with those energies of feeling like we have to be something other than we are, it gives us the space to take in the love without feeling like we have to earn it. It doesn't mean you won't still become a doctor. But again, are we working from the fear? And part of that is turning towards what's good. So in our mind, when we practice, we would meditate on times in which we did receive love, just for being us. In Tibetan Buddhism, we do a lot of practice around thinking all living beings were once our mothers. And when we think about that, we think they carried us in their body, they gave us food, they protected us, right? These are all acts of love. Some parents can't say it verbally, some can. Okay? So we have to seek it and savor it.
This is so important because I have a lot of Iranian viewers and listeners, and I think that they have this thing with their parents and the like not feeling like they're ever good enough, and those really high thresholds of success and feeling like they're not good enough. This is so important to hear, that believing that the parents love them and that they're good enough as they are. I can't even think of a time that I was loved just for me.
Yeah. So when your mom tucked you into bed after she gave you a bottle.
Okay, you're saying like even the basic care.
Not only,
love.
not even the basic care is love.
Right. She used to scratch my back.
There you go, sweetheart. So what we do is we sit and we recall those moments. When we start to feel the energy of feeling cared for, we drop the image of the back scratch or sensing how it felt, and we tap into the body, feeling that warmth of being cared for, breathing in, expanding it through the body, and breathing out, just absorbing that, letting that settle into the body. It'll fade, and then we recall the experience again until we can sense a little bit about what that little girl sensed. Let her sense it. She's still in you. So we let that little girl come up and say, yes, I feel loved. And then we sense that, breathing in, expanding, breathing out, absorbing. It'll fade. Then we recall again. We need to do this. Why? Because we only can experience things that we place our awareness onto. When our awareness is all on the difficulties, that becomes a worldview or a perception. That's what we start to clock in our mind. Rick Hansen says positive experiences are like Teflon for the brain, and negative experiences are like Velcro. And this is an old survival instinct. We needed to worry in order to be safe as cave people, and, you know, when we were at the beginning of societies. Our emotional brain has developed so much, and that thinking mind doesn't know the difference between an emotional and physical threat. So it'll replay the one time mom said, I'm not proud of you. Even though your whole lifetime she fed you. But it will forget that and replay that, and that will become a worldview. And that's what we start to respond to. So all of our actions now are following that. I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough. If we say that enough, think about the amount of tension that's going to rise in the body. And then we start to act in ways to try to get away from the feeling of not being good enough. That feeling of not being good enough has been perpetuated by recalling one moment, maybe even in our life, because children are very sensitive. One moment in our life in which we felt that. So now we have to intentionally, as Rick Hansen says, create a positive experience within ourselves by recalling, okay? And start to expand our awareness of the good. He says, taking in the good. Now, thinking is not the same thing as meditating. So if we think, oh yeah, mom did that, that's not the same. It's not going to rewire. We need mindfulness to activate our neuroplasticity, meaning the ability to change the brain with our mindfulness. And trust me, that's a real thing, and we can look up articles and all that stuff, and you're welcome to do that. We can't go into all of that right now. But we need that. We need to say, I'm stepping back. I see this. I see this is causing suffering. Suffering is the feeling of not being good enough. And it's controlling my life. Do I want to live my life, again, being controlled by my suffering? So we need to step back and find the other aspects of ourself that are solid and free, even when the thinking mind sends those messages. And then tap into the emotional state, the aspects of ourself that feel hurt and unloved and imperfect, and step into those and care for them. I want to say something about perfection. I really do. Perfection is a contract you made in your own mind, and you are allowed to break that contract. And only you can break that contract.
What gives me the right to break it?
So who created it?
Me, these things I grew up with.
Mm-hmm.
It comes back to kind of like the pooch and the Diet Coke, and it's all kind of where it seems like the same thing. It's like,
it is the same thing, yep.
if I'm not doing it perfectly, then I shouldn't do it at all.
Let me explain something and see if this resonates with you. And I'll just say from my perspective, in my observing and sort of studying the way perfectionism works in my own mind, I realized, and maybe you'll identify with this, that when you meet the goal, the thinking mind will move the goalpost.
Yes.
And that's because it never wants you to feel like safe.
Why?
Because it wants you to be in fight, flight, or freeze. Remember,
Why?
this is an old survival instinct. So if there was a lion behind the bush with the pink flowers, I use this example a lot, and you're a cave person, and you went to go gather by yourself, and you almost got eaten by the lion, it's very important for you to go home and beat yourself up about going outside alone so you don't do it again, to ruminate on all of the difficulties that arose. You walked down that path, you went, you saw a bush with pink flowers, and now we're starting to really get into that hippocampus, the idea that if we see a bush with pink flowers, go into fight, flight, or freeze, because the thinking mind does not want you to say, oh, are these flowers beautiful? Or maybe there's not a lion behind here. Okay? Now, think about the amount of suffering that will create.
That
Say
seems
there's
that it would
thousands
work
of bushes with
if you
pink
got
flowers.
hurt. Okay, no, go ahead.
Yeah, so
Keep
think
going.
if there's thousands of bushes with pink flowers. Do you want to live your life afraid that there's always a lion behind it?
It's just like sometimes I can't tell the difference between what's real and what's like my thoughts that have been developed from these past traumas, like the prom. So is my reaction to this event, is that a real reaction that a rational person would have? Or is it because of my specific whatever, like trauma? And either way, how am I supposed to respond? If I was eaten by a lion or scratched by a lion at one pink bush, why am I going to go out and explore other pink bushes? Like, I learned my lesson. Like, that's how we can keep learning lessons.
Right, that's right. So if it was really about exploring the pink bush, I'd be fine with it.
Okay. It's kind of like if
Instead-
someone gets cheated on. I've never been cheated on, but if they do, I could see how they don't want to get into another relationship.
That's right. That's
Because
right,
they're like,
sweetheart.
no, love means pain. So why keep doing it?
Why do you think?
I don't know. I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted from all this trial and error. Oh, I told you this last time too. I said I feel like and then you told me that your tools evolve and that you get
sweetheart.
better.
There you go,
And
sweetie.
so the next time that it happens, you have better tools and you're not going to spiral the same way, and you just get better and you get better. And I guess, I don't know if the toolkit I have has the right, like, I feel like I've gotten to this wall and like all my tools are all like, like broken and like, like you need a full new kit and like, and I don't have the tools for this stage of my life, this next phase. I had a thought. This is the phase of like the age where I experienced my mother. Like, she was my age when I was young and feeling a lot of pain in that house.
Yeah.
And so I think I'm stepping into this age and beyond, which is how I know my mother. And I think she didn't, like, when I watched that, I don't think that was a great example. So I don't think I'm prepared. Like, I'm like basically partially turning into her and her reactions and her whatever baggage. And I'm not even able to move on. Like, at least when she was my age, she had like 3 kids and she was like managing a life, and I'm not even doing any of that. And because I just feel like I don't want all that.
Okay. So one thing I want to point out is that instead of saying we get better, let's say we get more compassionate.
all of this, and what is like the end goal?
So the end goal.
That was a really deep bomb to drop on you, but
okay.
that's what
what
I'm wondering.
So the end goal is to find a way to be resilient as a human being.
Why? Why do we need to even be here?
So you can experience the human experience. And that one of the joys is love. So we want to start caring for our fears. We want to start having more resilience. We want to have more compassion for when love does hurt, because love does hurt. You're right. It does hurt. It does. And why? Because when we're in relationships, that person is meant to touch all our seeds. Now listen to me, sweetheart. It's meant to touch the seeds so that we can grow. So love is the soil for our growth. If we abandon our seeds, we don't grow, and then it just becomes a toxic relationship. Two people become quite stagnant, right? They get caught in their own patterns. Now, what happens, let me give my relationship as an example, is that like with my husband, right? He touches my seeds, of course, because when we're in a loving relationship, it's really the closest to being child-parent as far as intimacy is concerned and dependence, right? So
that means child parents to each other?
Yeah. So if when we're children, right, we have that very intimate relationship. We're sharing a home, and there's a dependence on each other to make life work out the way it should, right? Mm-hmm. Or it can. And so those seeds are going to be watered by our loved ones. That's just the way it is. Okay, it's the deepest love we can feel besides the love between ourselves and children and ourselves and a parent. So those seeds are going to be watered, and they're meant to be. So instead of thinking something's wrong, when I get, let's say, my big thing is if my husband is uncomfortable or he's upset about something, I get really uncomfortable. And I want to go into fix, manage, and control because I'm terrified, terrified of him getting dysregulated in any way, even though he's not taking it out of me. In any way, he's quiet. I mean, that's how he is. And I just can see he's in pain. And I have such a fear reaction to that I'll start to go into fix, manage, and control. So what did I have to do? I saw that was suffering. And I said, a seed's being watered. So instead I said, this is what my practice has to be right now. So when he would get, like if he's unhappy in some way, or let's say works hard, let's say he's tired. I mean, I have a hard time seeing him tired. It's just my thing. And so then I sit next to him on the couch, like while he's tired or whatever like this, and I feel all the discomfort come up. And I'm like, oh,
so hard.
I'm like, I'm suffering. I'm so scared right now. Like, what does discomfort mean? Because in my childhood, if the parent was uncomfortable, that was very scary.
Codependent.
That's right. And we're very sensitive as children. And that's just something
you had to make sure they were okay so you'd be okay.
Yeah.
So when they weren't okay, you were like...
That's right. And
so you sit there...
experience the pain. But it's because I've practiced a lot with compassion. So I'm able to step back and see it as an energy. So I'm stepping back and I'm sensing it. Hello, my suffering. I see you there. I name it. Naming is really important. It's called labeling. It activates our prefrontal cortex, which calms our amygdala. So I'm saying like, hello, anxiety. I see you there. Hello, fear. I see you there. Hello, tension. I see you there. Okay.
Oh, I thought you meant like name it like Jack.
Oh, you could do that too if you want. If it's a frequent visitor, you can definitely name it. And then I start to notice the sensations. And if I get overwhelmed and sucked into it, then I go to something neutral to pleasant, such as my breath or sound, until I calm down. And then I come back into it. And then I start giving it love. And it's not to change it. We're never going to smother it with love. It's to start changing the relationship so my wiring is different. Because if I wire compassion with that fear, when the fear arises, the compassion arises, and then it settles down. And then I have wisdom, and I can either know I can do something to help my husband or I can't, and I have to let him go through what he's going through. Mm-hmm. And that's the freedom that we're talking about. Okay? So habit energy versus clear seeing and choice. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And if we can do that, then over time we realize love is not about hurting us. Love is about watering the seeds so that we can grow and then be cleared of those seeds so we can fully experience love. Love will do nothing if not show you the obstacles to receiving it. It's not, love wants to show you what is blocking you from feeling love.
It sounds crazy.
Because we have a chance to clear that. We have a chance to transform that. And then you can receive it fully without fear. It takes time. I'm not trying to say this is simple.
This is my biggest question and probably my last question, because I think we have to wrap up, but can we do all of this? I know there's different levels of like mental health. And so obviously we can't have like a general answer to this question. So I'm going to sort of preface with that, but do we need to go to therapy? Cause a lot of my friends are like, you need therapy. And it's like, do I need therapy? Can I do this all with meditation? Like how much of it?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can do it all with the meditation, but you need a good teacher and a guide. It takes someone sitting with you and finding the things that we want to work with and transform, right? You really need a teacher. It's important. It's also important because just as a therapist is holding space for you, a kind, loving space so you feel safe enough to explore certain energies, that's what a kind teacher can do for you too. So we aren't always able to be with certain energies without becoming dysregulated. And it's very important to feel like we're held and safe so that we can go into those energies. All right. So that's part of what a teacher does. And they also help point. So we would help point to areas in which we may start to investigate and then add some compassion. Now, that being said, therapy and meditation work perfectly together. And if you can find a therapist that incorporates mindfulness, that's even better. That's what the research shows, that we want both, okay? So if you have a kind therapist that's really pointing you in the right direction, that's beautiful. That's amazing. I'm also going to add, if we need medication, we take our medication. I'm all for meditation and medication, okay? I went undiagnosed for my condition for a long time and didn't have medication, and now I do. And I can
What is the medication?
So, well, I don't necessarily want to say the medication, but it's not narcotics. I'll put it that way. But I have to take 5 different medications.
Wow. And you do meditation. I guess I thought that the point of doing meditation was to not do medication.
Yeah. So I think that's.
But then I feel like I'm suffering and like.
So that's a misnomer. So the thing is, they can go together, sweetheart. We don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. This is not some sort of moral code that we're trying to put on people. This is an aspect of the self that's your birthright that you have choice to utilize in whatever way you wish. This is about you owning your own life. And for some people, they have a chemical imbalance. Or for me, what happens is that the centers in my brain that process pain are overactive and they actually create pain.
Wow.
And I went through a long time trying to meditate. I would go to retreats and I'd be in so much pain, I'd just be sobbing, trying to sit up. This is not beneficial. Sometimes we need, like one of the things that it is, I have arthritis in my neck. That's just one of the things. Ouch. It's a different condition. So I was trying to sit, not knowing that these flare-ups were arthritis. Well, I'm sorry. Yes, I can handle pain with my meditation, but why wouldn't I take an arthritis medication? It doesn't make any sense.
Well, that makes sense. But then, I was talking to this like homeless dude on the street that sells his art, and he shows up every day to Venice Beach and sells his drawings for like $2 a piece. Okay. And I was like, he lives in his van, doesn't have a house. And then I was like, do you ever get depressed? And he said, depressed? No. Like, I live at the beach. He's like, do you own your house? And I said, no. He's like, how much do you pay rent? And I told him. And then he's like, how much is your car payment? And I told him. And he's like, do you own any of that? No. Ooh. And then he said, like, he made $100,000 selling drawings on Venice Beach last year.
See? And also he's got and we
yeah, we're done.
Yeah, but so he
like,
also,
why isn't that guy's not depressed? Because he's just living in the fully present. Yeah, and he's like, I'm connected to the source. I don't need validation. I don't need all this stuff. And it's like, I spent all this time, like, I got to get a law degree, and then people
That's
will
right.
appreciate
We are
me.
accumulating from the outside. Now, I want to just tell you one thing that's part of the wisdom of these teachings. It's called the cow. It's the cow teaching. So one time Buddha was out with his monks, and the farmer ran up to them, a herdsman ran up to them and said, "I've lost my cows. Have you seen my cows?" They said, "No, we haven't seen your cows." And he was so distraught that he had lost his cows. And then when he left, the Buddha turned to the monks and he said, "See, this is why you're happier than the herdsman, because you have no cows." So the more we accumulate, the more fear of loss that arises. The true happiness is about going in and creating a sense of resiliency, safety, and compassion within ourselves.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much. Where can we find you?
Oh, yeah. So my website is just my name. It's Heather Prete Mindfulness. And you can sign up and give me your email, and we'll let you know about offerings. I am doing my Greece retreat. I do a Greece retreat every year on the island of Ithaca at this beautiful place called Ithaca 108. We're the only ones that are there. And we have this beautiful outdoor space that's built into the side of a hill.
Wow.
It's really amazing, with gorgeous rooms as well in the main house and yurts. And I'm doing the compassion certification here at the Den. So
you
there's
have
lots
private
of
healings
offerings.
and meditation classes, and you're teaching at the Den. And I will put the link to your site below as well.
Beautiful.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much. This was amazing. Thank you for sharing your beautiful gift. And thank you for creating the space for me to come share my gift.
I'm so glad that you did.